Everyone on Facebook, just give us a little bit of time. We are just admitting people into our meeting room. Diagnosed with ADHD, what do I do now? This is the talking point for tonight. So we are very excited to be here with you. And a warm welcome to my friend Sunel Biman, and thank you for taking the time, Sunel, to out of your home. She's got a little one at home and a husband, and you are taking time out to speak to us. So we're very excited. Thank you for that.
It's a big pleasure, as always. I enjoy chatting to you.
Okay, so for those of you that don't know me, my name is Karen Visser, founder and co-owner of BioLink Attention Training. And my background is in education. I was a teacher many years ago, but first of all, I'm a mom whose child was diagnosed with ADHD when he was only in grade 1. And that's when our journey started as parents and not knowing what to do. And the first thing I remember, so now when we were told, we were told this, was the first thing was that I thought or asked myself, what did I do wrong? And tonight's meeting is all about all the emotions that parents goes through, but also the emotions and what children feels. And we see so many webinars with regards to the symptoms and all of that, but no one always takes the time to look at the other side of the coin, which is the emotional side. What happens? How does it feel? So this is our talking point for tonight. Just before I'm going to hand over to Sunel, if you have any questions, you will see that there's a chat box. Please put in your questions and I will direct this to Sunel at the end of the presentation. And you see, it's not going to be a presentation. We are actually just going to have a wonderful chat. Marlies, my sister, my business partner, she's on Facebook. She will be moderating on Facebook. So if you have any questions on that side, she will answer that for you on that side. So without further ado, because we don't want to make this long, Sunel, so our first question and discussion point is, yes, how does the diagnosis of ADHD affect the emotional side? What happens?
Usually, with me, I am sometimes the person that has to make the diagnosis or that makes the diagnosis. And I find a variety of symptoms with the parents. And like you said, in your case, guilt is often one of those. It's like, what did I do wrong? And we know that there's a genetic component to ADHD as well. So, but what I find with most parents is, besides the guilt feelings and not knowing what to do, it's a lot of anxiety and a lot of uncertainty about what next? What am I going to do next? Where do I go from here? What does this diagnosis mean? So often for me as well, I tell people, make sure about, so I often refer to another specialist as well, so that we make an actual sure, decision and diagnosis about the condition, because it is often misdiagnosed as well. Because often, people come into my office with depression or anxiety, and it can be children or adults, and then it ends up being ADHD. And ADHD has, like you said, we often don't talk about the emotional side of it, but ADHD is actually the cause of many people's depression and anxiety and other mental issues that they may deal with. But besides the negative, I also sometimes find that parents have a sense of relief. It's almost as if now there's a name for what my child has. So it gives them a sense of relief to know that there's people that can help. There's a name for the condition. And you and I both know, and I mean, you yourself have done a lot of research on this. So we know that people keep on doing research, and society is much more open about ADHD than they were in the past. When I, for instance, found out when I was a student that I have ADD, I don't have the hyperactive part, but I find out that I have ADD. And In girls, it looks much different than boys, you know. So for me in itself, it was an eye-opening experience while I was studying, and I found out, okay, this is what's going on with me, you know. So and it was also a sense of relief to actually know, okay, you know, I'm not too psycho. There's a reason why I'm acting the way I do. So but yeah, so many emotions that parents go through. I don't know from your side if there's any other experiences that you maybe had as a mom that received the news.
Yeah, I think the first thing that you feel so overwhelmed because first of all, if you don't know what to do, and sometimes, you know, the people you go to talk they talk a language that you not always understand as a parent, you know. So advice for me always when I speak to parents is to say, if the doctor or the specialist or psychologist that you're talking with talk about things that you don't understand, ask them. Don't feel oh no, I don't want to feel stupid or look stupid. Ask
Exactly.
them, because it's very important that you do understand. Education, the first when this was when we were in that boat, the first thing I started doing and my husband started doing is we started researching this. Now remember, yes, we are now talking about 14 years ago. And ADHD wasn't a thing like it is now. So we started educating ourselves. And as we were educating ourselves, we started to feel better. Okay, exactly. We understand, like you said, so what now? And then going to someone like you, giving us the steps that needs to be done.
And I often say to the parents, yes, sorry. Often say to the parents, you know, they go to Dr. Google. And I mean, we all go to Dr. Google. So there's nothing, I also go to Dr. Google. But often there's a lot of negative information out there. So they don't give us and I'm an idealistic person. So it's just my personality. So I always try to show people the silver lining as well. I know it sounds like a cliche, but there's actually, and you would know about this, that they actually say that ADHD can also mean that you are twice gifted, because we have a lot of, and we'll talk about that now, but there's a lot of successful, famous people out there who have ADHD, and they've made great lives for themselves because it actually, you can sort of multitask there. And that's something I experienced in my own life, and I often see with the kids as well, you know. So it's not necessarily just negative.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah. So my next question is, how does the child feel? Because now it sometimes feels as a parent, okay, now you feel in the beginning it's like the death sentence and there's no end. But we forget, we deal so much with our own emotions that we forget that there's a little one here that I need to help now, and I need to understand what they are feeling and how they are experiencing that. And I think that's also very, very important.
Yes, and what I thought to do is I thought to do a bit of an exercise. You know me, I'm a very practical person, but I'm not going to make you stand on your head or anything funny like that. But I want the people that are listening and watching just to play along. I'm going to ask you guys to close your eyes, and I want to read to you just an extract from one of my patients. It's an 8-year-old boy that he's very, you know, I asked him to draw actually for me what he's thinking. And then afterwards we spoke about it, and he explained to me what he was thinking in a number of seconds. So it wasn't, you'll see that it's a few seconds, but his mind was going all over the place. And so I'm going to do the exercise and ask the people that are listening or watching just to close their eyes and just to sort of put themselves in the child's shoes, because he's now sitting in class. He's 8 years old. He's supposed to be listening in the maths class to the teacher. We know our kids are 8 years old. We know that's a very important stage in their development and in their academic development as well. So now just imagine that you are this child. Okay, so are you ready?
Let's do it.
Here we go. So, okay, close your eyes, everybody. I can't see you guys, but I trust you. Okay. So, okay. I'm a superhero. I want to be Superman. I can fly. I want to fly. Oh, no. Wait, jump. Wait, I want to jump. I want to be Tigger from Winnie the Pooh. And then both the songs come into his head. the songs from Superman as well as the songs from Winnie the Pooh. So it's these two songs playing together. I should be listening to the teacher. Oh, a butterfly. Look, a butterfly. Where is it going? Oh, it's gone. Oh, no. Oh, I'm hungry. I wonder when it's break time. I usually like break time, but sometimes I wonder if somebody's going to play with me, because sometimes people don't want to play with me and I feel left out. And then the child actually starts to feel a bit sad and sort of dreading break time. And then the teacher asks, hey, wake up, answer the question, please, or in a nice way, So for instance, his name is Pete. Pete, so what do you say about this equation or this question? And Pete wouldn't have a clue because he didn't listen. He was busy flying and jumping and singing and having all these songs in his head. And just by me reading this, I'm tired when I read this, So, and then what happens is, often in classes, now the child can't answer the question, so they feel extremely shy and embarrassed. And sometimes the other kid, we know kids are kids, and they can be cruel sometimes. So they laugh at the kid, and then he feels even more left out and more isolated. So I think it's important just to realize that they go through so many things in their little heads in a short time span. And if you are to experience that same, situation, I'm sure you would feel overwhelmed, like you said. Like the parents feel overwhelmed, the children also feel overwhelmed.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to add to this.
Yeah, I want to ask you, because a lot of times I'm talking about my own, our own practice, is that sometimes when the children or parents comes to us, they've been to 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 or 10 other places. So these poor children are assessed over and over and over and over again. And I think a lot of times they do realize they are different, but now the assessments just don't stop. And they start feeling, okay, but they must be wrong something with me. So I think there's a lot of things that they don't talk about as well, because of the things that we do as parents to try and help. And I think that's a big thing too.
Yeah, we think and I mean, parents often don't, it's not because, again, it's not, parents shouldn't feel guilty, because you and I as moms know we sometimes do or say things that we think we should have done better or done earlier or done differently. That's not going to help you in this situation. And remember, children, we'll get to that now as well when we come to the parenting and all that. But children feel our emotions. They feel our energy. I remember when my daughter was still a baby and I was having an anxious day, for instance, she wouldn't sleep that night, So we must remember that our emotions are so contagious. So, and that's why we're going to talk to the parents, or specifically talk to the parents as well, about their own emotions and dealing with that, because that's also going to help. Often I work with the parents more than the children, actually, because they actually, if they are calm and they know what to do, ADHD can be handled. It can be controlled, it can be handled, you can live a full, happy, wonderful life. We must, just like you say,
we are both ADHD. I'm ADHD, but I mean, we are fine.
You beat me with what you beat. Oh, you win.
But I mean, if you are a young parent, sometimes it feels so overwhelming, and I think it's good then to look at other people, like you said, and say, okay, they are fine, but there's processes and things that needs to happen. It's just not gonna happen like that.
Exactly. It's quite they need to know that it's going to be a journey. Like with we know with any child, whether a child has a condition or not, they constantly change. So we constantly have to adapt. And when you have a child with ADHD, depending on the symptoms they have, specific symptoms, because I also try to treat each child as an individual, because even though a child is diagnosed with ADD or ADHD, it can look much different from somebody else's. So it's important to know the specific symptoms that your child has. So that's often where my education also comes in with the parents, to help them specifically with what their child is struggling with. And like I said, often the parents would be like, but I think this comes from my side of the family, or I think it comes from, if it comes from the other parent, then it's often like, yeah, see, then we often have that thing of it's your child and your behavior, even though we mean it in a funny way.
Yeah.
But
yeah. But Sunel, so what is your advice as a professional that how should a parent tell or talk to a child with regards to, should they tell them, listen, you've got ADHD, or how should they handle something like that?
I usually talk to the parents, and it depends on the age of the child. So if the child is usually at about age 7 or so, we see a lot of these symptoms coming forward. We see it earlier, we see it later as well. So it's important that you talk on your child's level. It's like you said before about the doctors that often speak in these medical terms, and you try to look clever, and you don't know what they're saying. So I usually say, just tell your child that there is something like ADHD on their level, and if they ask you what it is, then you can explain the symptoms to them. Like, for instance, when we're sitting in church and you are jumping up and down and you are finding it difficult to sit down, so you can zoom into your child's own symptoms, your own experiences, because they can relate to that. So they can then say to you, yes, I don't sit still, and then you say, well, that's one of the things that makes you unique, and that's part of this ADHD. So you look at the different symptoms, and usually, children, I found that with many things in life, we sometimes overcomplicate it. So we sometimes try to say too much, and sometimes if you just say to a child, you jump up and down too much, or not too much, but you struggle to sit still or whatever, then they are like, okay, and then they run off, then they are fine. But I think it's important to tell them that having ADHD is not a flaw in the first place. It's not that there's something terribly wrong with them. When I was taught as a psychologist, one of the quotes I remember that one of my professors said was, the way you see the problem is the problem. So if you now get this diagnosis from the doctor or whoever, and you go like, oh, I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to deal with this. What about my child's life now? Your child is going to feel that in the first place, and it's going to affect your child. It's going to affect your child more, because ADHD, like you say, educate yourself, go and read up on it, ask your therapist or whoever you're working with about support groups. I know at BioLink you guys offer amazing support, so it's important to have a support system as well, people that you can talk to. So, but to come back to your question about, that's where the ADD comes in. I now went off somewhere again, but to come back to your question, so you work on the child's level. You say their specific symptoms. You would tell them it's not a flaw, it's not a mistake, it's nothing that they've done wrong, it's nothing bad. And then you can tell them that, all of our kids sometime during their school career learn about Thomas Edison, and about Albert Einstein, and apparently both of them had ADHD. So, and look at the amazing stuff. If it wasn't for them, there's a lot of things we couldn't do. So I often I try and go, and then I use Dr. Google. So then I go and look in the child's world. If they maybe say that they are into superheroes or whatever, I won't go and look at the actors or famous people that they know. Yes. And tell them, did you know that Will Smith, for instance, we know Will Smith more than the youngsters maybe do, but he recently played in the movie Aladdin. So Will Smith has ADHD, and it actually makes him a good actor because he can multitask and he's busy, and the H part makes him hyperactive, So a lot of famous people actually have ADHD, and to tell your child that it doesn't make them, their brain just works a bit differently. So I usually, when they're very small, I just tell them their brain works a bit differently, but they are still often, these kids are extremely intelligent, so there's nothing wrong with their intelligence. It's just that they have to work a bit more, you as a parent and the child have to do things a bit more differently to adapt and to cope.
What I often tell parents is that there's two sides that you need to know. Is if you know now, okay, my child is ADHD. If you look at their behaviors, now you do understand that it's not that they don't want to do that thing that you want them to do. It's that they can't.
Yeah.
So now, if you've got this information, you are going to react totally different towards that. And then, because we know this now, we can set a plan in action to help them. And I think that's so important for parents and teachers to understand this. It's not a can't, it's a won't, it's a can't. Big difference.
Yeah.
Yes, they can't.
And
but we can teach them how to.
Exactly. And because often you and I both know when we were young, if a child was busy, they would be seen as busy or naughty, you know, instead of, if I look back and think of a lot of my friends as well, I'm like, hey, I'm sure that one had ADD or ADHD, you know. So, but often the teachers, at least now, the world is a bit more educated, still not as much as we want them to be. But I'm glad you brought in the teachers, and because it's important that all of the role players, that's part of the plan, is all of the role players in your child's life should be brought in, you know. So the teacher, the parent should be on the same page, the psychologist or whoever is working with the child should be on the same page. So when I work with children with ADHD, I work with the parents, but I will ask them if I can talk to the teacher as well. So I would then speak to the teacher, and every time, you know, I find that the teachers are very accommodating and understanding, and that they do have more knowledge. So I do think it's the times that we live in. They do have a bit more knowledge than the teachers in our time, maybe.
No, for sure. And just to just tell everyone, I see there's people that came in late. All your questions, there's questions coming in. Don't worry, I will address them at the end. So you just keep on typing, and I will ask them to Sunel. I'll direct them to you at the end. Okay. So it brings me to the next one, and you and I actually spoke about this, so I'm going to shuffle our questions a little bit. But Sunel, we talked about the difference between boys and girls, the behaviors that we see, and I told Sunel this, what we see is that normally grade R to grade 3, it's more the boys, and then in grade 4 and up, we see a shovel, then it's more girls. But so now I would like you to address this, and from your perspective, why do we see this? Why is that there's a big difference? You see it, we see it, just in different angles.
Yeah, there's still a lot of research being done about that, but it's quite recently that scientists discovered that girls, maybe it's because of the hormones, but or the differences in their body, but girls definitely, not all girls, some girls are also very active and very busy, but many times with the girls, you will find it's those that are very quiet in class. They are sort of, so a lot of them have OCD type of symptoms, obsessive compulsive. They would be very perfectionist, you know, the perfectionist in what they do. So they would almost find ways to overcompensate or to try and regulate what they are going through. And they can get away with this for a while. But then at a certain age, like you say, when they're older, like grade 4, when they start to write exams, and I see it in high school as well. You know, the teens can't, or the young kids can't cope with it anymore because the work is too much. So they could maybe memorize everything and do everything perfectly, and work extremely hard. And I know, because this is what I did in school as well. I loved school, but I had to work very hard to get my results, and I did well in school. But if I think back, I worked much harder than my sister, and we got almost the same marks. So I realized that I put in that extra effort. So we do find with girls that and I think it's mainly because of the gender differences.
Yeah.
With the boys, you see more the typical behavior that we would normally see with ADHD, like you said. For instance, I taught a class the other day, and it was a grade 4 class, and I did a relaxation technique with them, and it was so funny because the girls were just, a lot of them were just like, they were so relaxed, they were almost sleeping. Some of them actually slept. And the boys, when I would say, for instance, breathe now, they would be like, make noises, or the one would open his eye and he would look at me, and so, and the one just wanted to jump up. He was like, I just feel like I want to jump now, like that Winnie the Pooh tiger. So it's still, there is differences, and I think a lot of the times with especially the girls, we miss it. So we misdiagnose them. So I see a lot of girls that I see a lot of 12-year-olds, when the hormones really start to affect them. A lot of 12-year-old girls, and when they come to see me, they either suffer from depression or anxiety, or they were diagnosed with that. They're on an antidepressant. And then when I research, or sometimes even just the first session, just by being with them, and I think this comes from experience over the years. So just by being with them, I will be like, wait a minute, let's just test you for something else. Can I ask you a few questions, and then I ask the parents and I ask the teacher as well. So, and then often with the girls, it is the depression and the anxiety is because of the ADHD, because they can't keep up. Because they don't get the same marks they did in a younger grade or something like that. So it's very important to watch our kids very carefully, because I think anxiety and depression and those things have become a buzzword, but often the ADHD is underlying. And I find this in my practice very, very often.
Yeah, I actually met a fantastic person. His name is Michael Lawson. He's actually from Winnipeg in Canada. And we had a discussion the other day, and he said, he actually found us on Facebook, but he said that he was a counselor in the Canadian, in his area's prison. And he started working with the youth. So he worked with teens. And as he was getting to know them and going, after a while, he discovered that most of them had ADHD. And,
yes.
and that's when he started, and this is going to lead me now to our next question, and this is so important, is that we need to, as parents, we need to know how to parent an ADHD child. So this is my question: is if we get a diagnosis, do we need to change things in our household? We've got a lot of parents that are maybe we've got blended families, we've got single families. How do we parent these children?
Yes, I'm going to give some general tips, and it's not going to be like you said. We have many different types of families. So usually when we sort of make a tailor-made plan for that specific child and that specific family, and like I said, we bring in the different people. But there's certain basic things that you have to, as you are listening, you can sort of as the parents are listening, or whoever is listening, they can just sort of in their minds, just tick the boxes, whether they are already doing these things or whether they are not doing it. But it's actually not big things that needs to happen. Okay. The first thing that I want to talk about is to keep things interesting, because we know one of the symptoms of ADHD is kids getting bored. They get extremely bored, and that's why you also spoke about the prisoners now. They often get bored, and they often engage in risky. They don't have impulse control, so they behave in a risky way. So I say to parents, keep things interesting. For instance, kids that have ADHD don't necessarily like to do homework. So don't try and force your child to sit there for an hour when you realize this is not going to work. So maybe have a do one activity, say for instance the maths activity, and then after that tell them, okay, you can play a few games, or do you want to go outside a bit, so then you sort of get the energy out again, and then you let them sit down again. So when they are very small, I usually say 10 minutes, 15 minutes, don't go longer than that. When they are bigger, it can be 30 minutes or 40 minutes maybe, but no longer than that. That's already pushing it if you're going to 40 minutes and up. So, but keep things interesting. So when you have the break, and this is sometimes for the parents a bit taxing, so I'm going to come to that part as well, because and I know we are busy, so there's not always time to keep things interesting. So, and that's where I help parents, and I give them some ideas about what they can do. And I will ask them, what do you already do in your household that your child enjoys, so that we can bring that in. It's like a bit of a reward for your child to say, if you work for 10 minutes very hard, we're going to give you this reward. It doesn't work with all children though. So I do have families that the mom comes back and she's just like, it's not working, so that's why I have a lot of tricks up my sleeve. And I always tell them there's always another way. If this doesn't work, we'll find another way. So it's very important for the parents not to get not to get negative if something doesn't work immediately. Like you said, it takes a bit of time. And then the second thing is, and this is something that sort of links to the first one, but to praise your child, to encourage them, so when they did do the homework, or they did a bit more than they were supposed to do, notice that. So even the smallest behavioral change that's positive, we don't always see that because we sometimes, like, life happens. But if you notice your child doing something that's different from before, doing a bit more homework, sitting still for longer, praise them for that. So that builds a kid's self-esteem in general. So praise them. Don't break them down. And then it's also important that there's a structure in your household. So many houses, especially when COVID happened, our structure was totally, in many houses, I don't know in your house, but in many houses it was on its head, so the parents would come to me and say, my child sleeps all day and plays all night, or watches series all night or something like that. And so a schedule, or it's very important to have that. So and it makes them feel calmer. When a child has ADHD and they know what to expect, if you tell them, we're going to do this and we're going to do that, and you'll notice behind me I've got like a board with little pegs on it. So that's a way, that's why I'm sitting here, so that you guys can see this as well. But for instance, to tell, it depends on how old your child is, but to write the different things they're supposed to be able to do on cards and put it in their room on a board or something. And then, for instance, brushing their teeth is one of the things. And there's, now we get dressed, now we go to school, now we do homework. So sort of just to give them a bit of structure, and sometimes through pictures, like I said, if they can't write yet or read yet.
Can I quickly interrupt you? Sorry, I just want to ask the parents that's here, if everyone, sorry, Sunali, just type in the type box in what grades your children are. So now you can go on. I just want to get an indication of the age groups of the parents that we are talking about. If everyone can just chat just give me that indication. Thanks, Sunal.
Okay, and that would be quite interesting to know, to see if there's a specific age group that we're talking about, and then, like I said before, with keeping things interesting, the fourth thing I want to talk about is that you should exercise. So you should be a role model to your child, because remember, with ADHD, there's all this excess energy that they don't know where to go with. So that's why they sometimes end up in risky behavior or jumping up and down or that type of thing. So it's very important that you exercise, that you show your children, that you play ball with them, that you ride bike with them, whatever you're able to do, that you actively participate in that. So that's an activity that you can maybe in the break time quickly work in, or just teach them. I had a girl whose mom couldn't sit and do her homework with her, but she had ADHD. And so the mom said, she then just spoke to the child and said, but jump up and down, you know, or go and ride on your bike. And she used to see the little girl when she comes home from work, she see her riding around the house on her bicycle, you know. And the kid said to me, or the child said to me herself, she said, oh, that works so wonderful, just to be able to get my body moving. And before, she would go and just lie on the couch or lie on her bed or play passively. So it's important they do something active. And that's where the parents come in as role models as well. So parents, you need to exercise too. So, and then regular bedtimes, of course, very, very important, because we often find that children don't have, like I said, with COVID now as well, the bedtimes were, in our house, it was totally, you know, before school started, it was totally upside down. So we had to incorporate times again and all of that. So to let your child calm down. So I'm not against medication at all.
Great. Can you guys hear me?
I can hear you.
Can you hear me? Sorry, I think she lost a little bit of connection. Let's just give her a chance. I'll carry on, because like us as well, we are not against medication as well, but we need to, sometimes it's given too fast, and that's why it's so important to work with the right people. I don't know if you know, we are all in Bloemfontein, and normally I direct people to Professor Adhd Venter, or there's some GPs that also do work with ADHD children. So it's important to, you know, refer to the right people. Hello, Sunali, you are back. I took over a little bit. Let's just get your mic on. Let's just get your mic back on. I was trying to improvise. Let me just unmute you. Unmute yourself just quickly. Sunal, we can't hear you. Hold on. There you go. You are back.
Okay, can you hear me now?
There you go.
Okay, can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I was left in the dark and in the silence there for a while.
No, no worries. I was taking over with it when you said you're not against medication. So I said also that we work with like Professor Adhd Venter and some other GPs in town as well. We like to refer to them that really specializes in the diagnosis of ADHD. And you, I send them to you.
Yeah, I also have a network of people that I work with. So there's, like you say, we really try to send you to a reputable, your child to a reputable doctor, or, you know, or not who has experience, who specializes in that specific field. So it is important, because sometimes parents say that my kid just can't go to sleep. They keep on getting up and then they want water. And we know kids do that anyhow, but kids with ADHD even more find it difficult to switch off. So sometimes some medication is necessary. And then I find with those moms that use the medication wisely and diligently, their kids have a wonderful sleep routine. So then the other thing I wanted to talk about was breaking tasks down as well. So sometimes and I see this when I have a small child with me that I'm working with. I saw this with a 10-year-old girl the other day, and I realized for a moment, I didn't think. So parents have to be so mindful, and teachers have to be so mindful, and it's difficult sometimes. So for a moment, I think I just forgot. I shouldn't tell her to do 3 things all at once, because I, for instance, said to her, will you please pick up the box and throw this in the box and bring my cell phone, and then we go. And we were doing some sort of an exercise routine, something like yoga, something like that. So, and she was looking at me like, huh? You know, and then I realized you should really break tasks down for your children. So if you want your child, for instance, to clean their bedroom, you start by telling them, okay, let's break it down into 3 tasks. To make your bed, just make your bed first, and then you can go and play again. Ne? And if they even make their bed and it looks like this, that's fine. Ne? They made the bed. Okay.
Fine.
And then if they then you tell them pick up the toys and put it in the boxes and pick up your clothes or fold your clothes or throw the dirty clothes into the bin or something like that. So but you don't say it all at once. And sometimes, our lives get busy. So we like, please bring this and this and that and do this and this and that. And then the kid lost you, long ago. So I realized with this girl, for instance, I had to say, will you please pick up the box for me? So she picked up the box and I was like, would you put the blanket in? So we just sometimes have to take things a bit slower as well. And life is so rushed, but it doesn't necessarily have to be that way. We sometimes make it that way. So so then I also wanted to talk about distractions, to keep distractions to a minimum. So especially where your child is working and studying and doing homework, no toys, get a spot where they know this is where I do my homework. So as soon as they start to get more homework, to have a desk and a chair and their pencils are there and everything they're going to need, but only that. And usually they should face a wall. So I know that sounds terrible to let your child face a wall, but if you let them sit at a window, they're going to stare outside at the birds and the bees and whatever is outside.
Or a mirror.
So usually
no girls in front of the mirror.
Oh, they
No.
Only my little one is now at that stage where she's like, no mirrors, or not no mirrors, but not where they're studying. Okay, so they should know that you can put up like a board like this behind me with their different tasks on or assignments or something like that. But nothing more than that. That's too distracting and that can take their attention away from their work. And then I also said, and this is very important, I think some parents, they don't mean to, but they sort of command their children. So they command their children to do this and to do that. Or it appears, especially children with ADHD are very, very sensitive. So they sort of command, or they think you're commanding them to do certain things or demanding certain things of them. Instead, you have to explain to them. It's like, for instance, if you tell your child, you know why mommy wants you to pick up your toys in your room? Because can you get to the other side of your room if I asked you now without stepping on your toys and breaking them? Or if your dad comes into the room, he's going to step on your toys and he's going to break them. So when you sit down and you actually respectfully talk to your child, depending on the age again, so you do it age appropriately, but talking to them, and that also teaches them self-respect. So if they see that you respect them enough to explain something to them, they feel respected, and it helps for their self-esteem, because that's another problem with ADHD, is that children's self-esteem are very much affected. The other thing is also there should be we call it a waiting time. So it's not a time out, it's just a short waiting time. So children with ADHD symptoms sometimes say things that just come into their mind. They would just blurt it out, and I often tell the kids or the parents as well to allow them to tell their child, you know what, and in psychology we often use the pause sign, not the peace sign, the pause sign. So that sign you get on a remote control, to just say, just pause yourself for a moment, and before you want to blurt something out, just think about it for 2 or 3 seconds. And often just that short waiting period helps them to get their thoughts together. So and that is something that I found that really has quite an impact on children, is just to tell them to have a bit of a waiting period. Do you want to come in here before? I feel like I'm talking a lot.
No, you're not. I want to tell you the age groups that we are working with. So I want us to go back to distractions, because we've got a few teachers in here, and I know the teachers need a lot of help with the big classes that we have. So we've got teachers ages 7 to 12. 7-year-old mom.
Okay.
Teachers 6 and 7, so grade 6 and 7, so it's 12 and 13 years old. And then I've got a 4-year-old. I've got another question for that mom. And then also teach grade 1, 7-year-olds. So let's talk, because you talked about this, the distractions is one thing at home, but it's very difficult for the teachers now in class. And I know, especially the grade 1s and the foundation teachers, their classes are beautifully decorated, but that's so difficult for ADHD child, because they see something new every day.
I know,
so,
and we don't want to take that away from them. No, we don't want to take that away, but I think it's important that when a teacher does an evaluation, for instance, because I saw today at the school that I went to, I saw that it was evaluation day for, I think, the grade R's. And we know that usually then the teacher asks them questions and stuff like that. So I saw that the teacher took the specific child to allow, they take them one by one to a quiet place where they could do the evaluation. Now, I know in the big classes, it's not always possible. But if you become aware of children in your class that have ADHD, there's research that shows, and I think you will also know this, that the positioning in the class plays an important role. And this is something you must sort of play around with a bit as a teacher, because sometimes it helps to have the child under your nose, sitting right, with COVID now it's a bit further, but sitting in the front row. Many research shows that when the kid sits in the middle, kids with ADHD sit in the middle row, sort of, it actually lessens the distractions, because there would be kids in front of them and kids behind them. So it would basically sort of block them in a sense. So some of the research indicate that. And also sometimes it works to have them right at the back, where they sit with their back against the wall and, they can't really see a lot in front of them, So maybe for the teachers that are listening, to try and position the child in a specific way. With the older classes, luckily with Corona now that's one of the positive things about COVID, is the teachers had to remove a lot of stuff out of their classes. So when I went to a school recently, I saw the classes look very empty to me, especially for the older grades. And I mean, we don't need all the stuff for the older grades. So I think it's important for you as a teacher to also go and see what is absolutely necessary and what is something that I only need to put on the wall today for today's class, like you would be writing on the board or something like that. So I think in the past we used to decorate our classes, like you say, with the smaller grades. The classes are beautifully decorated, so it's a bit more difficult for them. But when it comes to the older grades, you can actually declutter quite a lot. And it helps most kids focus. So it's not just the ADHD children, it's also the other kids' needs. So, or the kids with ADHD. We shouldn't say ADHD children, because they aren't ADHD. Exactly. So they just have it.
Yeah. The thing is, and I want to come in here because we work with distractions also, and I will get to the assessment that we are using, is that there are 3 types of distractions. So it's your auditory, your visual, and then emotional. Mm-hmm. So the emotional is the one that's
exactly
we can't see, but the auditory and the visual is ones that we can identify. And if we do have the answers, especially with a teacher, if you know that child is visually, he sees everything, it's better to put him right in front of the class, in front of the teacher's bench, because then if they are sitting at the back, they are seeing everything. And again, remember what I said is, especially if they, and a lot of children are not ADHD and are distracted. We see that also.
Exactly.
And they
just
look around.
It's just their learning style.
Yeah. And they hear everything. We've got children they hear everything. They hear the pencil that falls, the paper that's crunching, the lawnmower outside, and that distraction takes them off their task as well. So, and yes, we can identify this, but we'll get to that. And this is key because sometimes these distractions are the primary or the root of the problem, of the sense of slow processing because I heard everything else. I didn't hear what you were saying. So the distraction
Exactly. I was
is a big
busy.
thing.
Yeah,
Yes.
I have a girl, for instance, a 10-year-old that I'm seeing with ADHD, and they gave her earplugs. I think she went to I don't know if it was a doctor or an occupational therapist, but when she came to me, she brought these earplugs and she showed them to me, and it's actually quite interesting. She puts them in at school. She can hear the teacher, but she doesn't hear all these small little noises around her. And since she's done that, she's much better. Her marks have improved, and so there are specific things, we can practically do, like you say, where we position the child. The earplugs work very well. And like you said, with the emotional one, I think teachers just need to be mindful as well. I know there's big classes out there, so it's sometimes difficult. But a child that's emotional will give you certain clues. And we can sometimes, when you work with kids quite a lot, you just pick it up, you just see sadness in their eyes or something like that. And that's usually what I work with. So I work with the emotional symptoms, and they are, when I don't know if I'm just biased because of my career or my job, but for me, the emotional symptoms are the worst, because the others are just as bad, but because we can't, like you said, we can't see the emotional symptoms. So a lot of these kids feel extremely left out, and as if they don't belong, and they feel different. And actually being different is not bad,
Yes.
it's that whole thing of trying to fit in and wanting to be part of the group. So, but I agree with you when it comes to the different sensory, or how they get distracted, the different senses. It's very important. That's why I often teach mindfulness skills to the kids as well, to help them, if it's emotional, to breathe it out, if they get anxious. So I teach them certain techniques they can do while they're sitting in their chairs, and just helping them when they're writing a test, or when they have to do an oral, or when they just feel all overwhelmed because of everything around them. Because some of these classes are pretty noisy, so I must admit, I take my hat off to the teacher. So I want to just say a lot of respect to you guys, because the bit that I teach, it's really, I love it, and I love the kids, but it can be quite draining as well. So while we're on that note, I just want to, we're talking to the parents as well, but with the teachers as well. It's important that you yourself look after yourself. So that's often where I come in with my patients as well, is I will see the children, and then I will see the mom. And then when I see the mom, then I realized this mom is so burnt out. And that's why the kids are also more anxious, or their ADHD symptoms are worse, or something like that. So often then I tell the parents, and sometimes they're a bit angry with me when I tell them, I think you need to talk to somebody, but then they get it. So most of them get it. And then just to help them to stay calm, and to look after themselves, and to make sure that they take a break from their kids as well. I know it sounds terrible, but I mean, we need a break from our kids sometimes. So, and luckily with the schools, I think it's almost holiday for the teachers. So that's at least gonna recharge them a bit.
A little bit, yeah. And as you guys can hear, like I said, we are based in Bloemfontein, and when we assess, remember, in our business, we work mostly with children and young children that struggles with attention or slow processing, speed, things like that. And we work very closely with Sunel, because I know that if I pick up something from my assessment, and it's something that I know there's another route we need to go there, we refer to Sunel. So we actually have a very great relationship between each other. And Sunel, you again refers
I also refer, sorry.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that helps the parents so much, just to have that whole support system. And we do different things, but yet the same, if it makes sense, So we do different assessments and different types of activities, but it all boils down to helping you and your child to be able to cope with ADHD in a better way.
Yeah. The
Yeah.
thing is with Sunel and them, they've got, Sunel's got a whole battery of how you test. And then I just wanted to quickly come in here and share with you why Sunel refers to us, because if Sunel sees there's an attention challenge or there's a processing speed challenge, or she picks up distractions, she can't quantify it. So we've got an assessment that we do, and even Professor Andre Venter refers to us, is that we've got an assessment that's an objective measurement. We measure attention span, brain processing speed, impulse control, and then the big one, the effect of auditory and visual distractions on those other factors. So all our assessment does is it quantifies. If I say attention span, I can show you this child has got an attention span of 10 minutes. And that again helps Sunel if they go back to her and she gives them strategies with regards to, okay, parenting, how do we do this? It gives her the information to again now go forward, because we are looking at the children holistically. So everyone that's here, and I had a meeting with the director of inclusive teaching of the Free State, and she works with all the special needs, all that, you know, that area of the education. And she actually assessed her own child with me. And now she's so excited because she sees the benefits that this assessment can have for teachers, because now they've got a number that they can help the parents and themselves with. So now I don't know if you want to add why that benefits you.
I just want to say that benefits me. It benefits me and it helps me so much, because like you said, then I can make a tailor-made plan. So if you tell me, this child's visual, they get distracted visually, then I know, okay, we need to talk to the teacher where this child needs to be seated, or that there shouldn't be a lot of distractions around him. So it just makes it a lot more, like you said, quantifiable and specific. So then I can specifically, and it's nice for the parents to also see it, you know, because you explain it to them very nicely. And then they're like, oh, wow, I didn't know my child, you know, this was so low or this was so high, or whatever the case may be. So it helps them a lot as well, because people still want the evidence. Some people, specifically certain personalities, parents with certain personalities want that evidence. They want to know, okay, so, you know, what exactly is wrong with my child? And then you can explain to them, like I explained to them more qualitatively, you would do it more in a quantitative way. And also then, you know, work with them, because then you also have strategies that you can, because you also have like study programs and things that you offer that I often refer people to if they ask me about study methods or things like that. So then I refer back to you as well.
Yeah, I've got a question here, Sunel, of a mom, and I love I love it when I see parents being proactive. So she's asking,
yay!
I get excited. Do you find a big relation between ADHD and speech delay? We are struggling with our 4-year-old's speech, and they have said it's related to him not concentrating.
It can be possible. It can be possible. Like I said, ADHD has a lot of comorbid conditions. So especially when they're very young, it can have an impact on their speech. But it's also if they've already had a professional, you know, diagnosis. Now it's important that I would, if I'm the parent, I would get a second opinion to make sure that this is what's going on. Because of course the things that come to mind as well is hearing, you know, the child's hearing, is the child's hearing okay? Some children just talk a lot later in life, so it also depends on genetics. So a lot of factors can play a role. So if I get a case like this, I would definitely If the child wasn't diagnosed yet, and it was, for instance, a diagnosis that I made, I would definitely refer just to another specialist as well, and to make sure that, like you said, we work holistically. So we make sure that this child gets helped in every possible way, and that we make sure that it, that it's not something else. But ADHD can affect your speech, because the child is we know with language you have to focus, you have to listen, you have to pay attention. So it can negatively impact the child, but there can also be other reasons. So I'm not sure if this mom, I'm sure they've gone to doctors, or if they haven't, don't just go to one specific person, get a second opinion as well. Our kids are so important. I always say, with grown-ups as well, get a second opinion when it comes to problems that you might experience. So
all the guests is, do we have any questions? Do you guys have any questions that you would like to direct to Sunel? And while you are typing, as you are seeing that we've got a lot of teachers in here, parents as well, is that if you would like more information with regards to the assessment that I was talking about, I did a whole teacher training the other day with a school in Pietermaritzburg, where I shared with him how the assessment looks like, and or what the reports look like, and how it can help them. So if there's any teachers in here that are interested in me contacting them to give them a little bit more information with regards to that, you can just put your information in the chat box. I've got all your email addresses, so I will be able to, you can just say interested in focus, and then I will be able to get back to you. So any other questions? So now you want to, oh, there's one. Let me just say, oh, Helen says, thank you. That's the mom of the 4-year-old. I can just tell you as a mom as well, my oldest son, and this is where my business actually started, when he was diagnosed, like I said, when he was 7 years old, but he's now 21 years old, and my story is always the same, and I don't say this to badmouth occupational therapists, but it's my story. And occupational therapist told me that I need to put him in a school, Letty
special needs, yeah.
Yes. And I mean, that is just because they didn't know that he actually was autistic. And if I didn't have the knowledge that I had, maybe I don't know how our lives would have, turned out. But he's now 21. He's doing very well. So now helps me a lot with other stuff. We are now on the social media and things that's going, things that can go wrong with him. So now plays a big role and supports the structure for me. And then I've got a 19-year-old, but I've got an 8-year-old as well. So I've got a large Lamiki that's 8 years old, and with Sunel's daughter in school. And it just gave me so much insight with regards to how schooling is now, and the pressure on parents and teachers. And the more knowledge, like I said, we have, the better we can help each other. Because it's a team effort.
Exactly, it's a village, né? Like they say that cliche. It's not a cliche; it's true. It takes a village to raise a child, né?
Yeah.
So, and I just want to say to the teachers out there as well, they must really consider getting you in, letting you do the assessments at their school, even if it's not with all the grades, even if it's with, for instance, thinking the grade 7s, the ones that have to go to high school soon, because I'm working quite a lot with grade 7s, and I do find it's quite a difficult age, but it's an age where we still can do something. Or with the younger ages, where you can also work with the younger ages. But I think it's important that the teachers just listen, and I can really recommend this. I can really recommend your program to them. So yeah, I've got a lot of, often if people ask me who should I go to when it comes to ADHD and these things, I'm like, BioLink, have you tried BioLink? And then they would be like, I heard of it, so they know about you guys out there. But we know what people are like. They often just talk and then they don't do something. So I can really, really recommend you guys. And I'm not saying that because we are friends or we work together, but We became friends because of
Yeah.
this, né?
Yeah.
So yeah, so it's just amazing what you guys do over there. So well done as well, because I have a few patients of mine that you have seen, and I get the feedback from them, especially the teenagers. So you know, they can always talk quite a lot. So and they say a lot of good things about you guys.
I think the message to everyone here is that, you know what, this is not the end of the world. It's not the end of the world. And if you are a teacher also, and I think that's why I'm so excited to see all the teachers here, is that to understand how a parent must feel. It's something that we need to be sensitive about and have a sort of a process in place to handle this, because the more positive we handle this, the better outcome we are going to have and the better results we are going to have. So I think our message to now tonight is that it's okay. Nothing is, it's not the end of the world. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
We're not going to let ADHD, the ADHD is not in control, né? So you are in control. As a parent, as a teacher, you can control it. So again, like I said before, the way you see the problem is the problem. And I think sometimes when you hear you're getting a child in your class with ADHD, you go like, oh no, you know, don't see it like that. You know, it's actually the children are some of them are very gifted and very special, and they just need that little bit of extra planning and help. So
Yes.
it's like you say, it's not the end of the world, and this is something we've researched so much that we know a lot about it, so we can help. And I think that's the message that I also want to leave people with.
Yeah. So thank you, guys. There's no other questions that I'm seeing. Sunal, thank you so much for taking your time. I actually moved our seminar a week earlier because Sunal, it was actually supposed to be next week, but Sunal is going on holiday. So I moved it because we always have such a great time talking and sharing ideas with parents. So Sunal, thank you so much for taking the time. I really appreciate it. And
it's a big pleasure, and I hope it helps people.
It will for sure, because you help me every day. So I'm always very thankful for the support.
And you're there for me as well, so I'm just as thankful.
Okay, guys, so everyone, thank you so much for attending. We do have a ebook that's going to go out that I created, Diagnosed with ADHD, What Now? So there's a few pointers in there. So that will all be emailed to you tomorrow. And also the recording will be on our YouTube channel. And so if you want to share this then with anyone, I will put the link into that email as well. So everyone have a great evening, and all the teachers, enjoy your holiday. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks, Sunal.
Bye.